Other questions? I think there is one more question from Badenur, but I ask for on her half. She said that there has been also a rise in the Middle Eastern art, and there is a rising demand for Eastern artists, in particular artists from Iraq and Syria. But when we see these regions, economically they are not doing well, but then do you think political tensions feed artists and art market in some sense, especially for international collectors?
Well, it can feed creativity. And there is a German saying which says that in necessity creates invention. So if you are in a particularly difficult situation, it makes you more creative and more inventive as a result of it. But you mentioned art from the Middle East. This is one of the most fascinating areas, artistically speaking, that has opened to the market at large. And I would say this has happened over the last decade. It's 10 years ago or 11 years ago that the first Art Dubai took place, and really showcasing the works of contemporary artists right through all the Middle Eastern area. And so that has played a big role, and you have a number of international collectors who have begun to collect artists from the region, and also great exhibitions that have taken places in different parts of the world that have heightened the knowledge and interest in artists from that area. Then let's not forget that some of the biggest cultural projects of the 21st century are all happening in the Middle East. What has happened in Qatar, for instance, all the different museums that have already opened or will open over the next few years are nothing short of phenomenal. The Islamic Art Museum in Doha, built by IMP. First of all, in my view, it's the most beautiful building that IMP has built anywhere in the world. But the content is sensational. There are, I believe, 8 more top world-class museums that have been opened or will be opened over time in Qatar. Then let's mention what happened in Abu Dhabi, the incredible Louvre of Abu Dhabi that has opened in the building of Jean Nouvel. There again, there are several more museums that are in planning, in the pipeline, and all of them world quality. Then I think that the projects that are on the way in Saudi Arabia may top it all, given the possibilities that they have at their disposal. But you must bear one thing. It's one thing to have the means to do something, but when the means come coupled with the vision of doing something outstanding and doing it in a condensed period of time, and that is something that all of these projects that I have just mentioned have in common. There is an incredible vision behind it, a great ambition behind it, and of course the financial means to implement that vision. So the fact that the 3 biggest cultural projects in the world are all happening in the Middle East, I think will have a huge impact on art created in the region. And to take on the point I was making earlier, this will of course be reflected in the artistic production, and is already being reflected in the artistic production of art being made in the region.
Actually, what we observe is, we cannot. I mean, Istanbul missed, I think, a good opportunity from this perspective, and Dubai and this region, Abu Dhabi, at this, at this competition, they already overtaken Istanbul. Although Istanbul, they're geographically also historically, it's a pearl. However, I think somehow we didn't have this stubborn vision and continuity. Although we had, we invested a lot in new museums, we tried to do a lot. as an economist, as an art economist, I cannot solve this equation. I cannot understand why all this effort couldn't generate the impact that we've been looking for so long. How do you explain that?
Well, I don't share necessarily your views, but maybe because I see it from the outside and you see it from the inside. First of all, I feel that Istanbul is a cultural center of paramount importance, world importance, since ever and since many, many, many years. So that is something that will never go away. This is simply there factually. Secondly, I think that the combination of the Istanbul Biennial that we mentioned earlier, or of the art fairs that have taken place in Istanbul over the last years, and a lot of those individual cultural projects that have taken place as well, make Istanbul one of a truly vibrant place from a cultural angle. And Istanbul is, of course, geographically at the ideal place between Asia, Europe, between North and South, East and West, and has a very important role to play and will continue to play. So I view the cultural situation in Istanbul maybe more positively that you may judge it from the inside, but that I think is natural, because I always view what happens around me the most critically, and have a slightly less critical view, or less severe view, let's say, if it doesn't happen in my immediate surroundings.
Yeah, good. Even if you see what you tell, then even this is a good news. Then we shouldn't cry too much.
You should
I
not,
think there is
definitely
one.
not cry. You're in a great place. Yes.
Batuhan, ask your question, and then I think this is going to be the last question, and we shouldn't really take any more time. Okay, Batuhan,
All right,
where are you? Okay.
Mr. Simon, it's wonderful to have you here. You address everything fantastically. I'm very glad to have you here. Can you please forgive me and tell me first if you're hearing me well, so I can construct
I
my
hear you
question?
well.
Perfect. So I want to elaborate on something you said a bit earlier. You said the taste is ever changing in the art market. Of course, this is regarding to the consumer side of the market. And there's this another thing, which is the motivation of the artists and the creators of those pieces, which is also ever changing. Now I see this duality. There are kinds of artists who take years and months or take their time to create their arts, depending on the muse that sparkles within them. But in contrast, there's also this economical structure, the art market. There is a showcase after showcase and gallery after gallery. And there are those who have to paint and finish their pieces to meet the demand in the market. Now, because of your job and your experience, you have the chance to look at those pieces personally, like by their pure artistic value, or also as an economical asset. I was wondering, how do you perceive those?
If I buy art as an economical asset or not, is that the question?
That is not my question, because it is kind of inevitable because of your job. But I
Yes.
was wondering, when you're looking at an artistic piece, can you see if it is an act of very idealistic attitude, or if it is purely done to, sell it or meet the demand in the market?
Yes, that's a very good point. I think that when an artist achieves some commercial success, first there is a struggle until you have any traction. But let's say, now speaking of an artist who has suddenly attained a commercial success, there is a big danger, creatively speaking, that she or he will then just continue to produce something similar that he feels or she feels is what is wanted by the market. And the minute you try to just feed the market, I think is very dangerous. It may, in some cases, mean creative death. And there are plenty of examples of artists that have had 4 or 5 years of brilliance and then followed by 50 years of mediocrity, where they have just repeated over and over and over again the same thing, simply because they thought that this was something that was wanted by the market or that the market liked. And very often the most adventurous artists, those that have focused on doing things independently of what the market wanted and would always push the envelope and do something completely new, in the end were those that won out. So it is important for artistic integrity to be able to demonstrate an independence of the market and an independence of your success or lack of success. And so in the same way that a lack of success can be very challenging for an artist, being very successful can be equally challenging and can kill off, artistically speaking, a number of artists.
Wonderfully put, sir. Now, about that pushing the envelope, there's another question which interrelates to this, and it is about this COVID-19 pandemic, of course. Whether or not they had the chance to produce those arts. Now, because of a necessity, artists had time to spend with themselves. There was some kind of inevitable journey within, in my eyes, because there has been a good amount of while since this started, and it is likely that it will go on for a while as well. So I was wondering, what do you expect the change of art will it be on this? Like, do you think artists will create more abstract pieces, for example, after spending that much time alone by themselves?
It's interesting when you mention the inner journey and spending time with oneself and all of that, which some of us, certainly me, has been kind of a big aspect of the lockdown and the whole pandemic, because I was every second, third day in an aeroplane going somewhere. And I personally actually loved suddenly the chance of being, just in front of myself and having the time and having the possibility of not constantly being on the run. But I think that for artists, it's been far less of a change, because most artists who work alone in their studios have known this kind of feeling all along, even in non-COVID days, being mostly alone, mostly with themselves, and creating some of their works in total isolation. I mean, it depends, of course, on your practice. Some artists create their works, not in the same degree of isolation. So I think that for artists in that respect, maybe less has changed. And but I couldn't tell you whether they will produce more abstract art or more figurative art. In any case, I think it's a pendulum. The pendulum swings in both directions. I've seen periods where everybody only wanted to see figurative art, and then it swings back to everybody wanting to just to see abstract art and back and forth. So I think as an artist, you should not even be concerned about, what is the trend of what is being done. Predominantly, you should just do and focus and do your thing, and not be too concerned by what your peers are doing.
Thank you, sir. May I have, please, and last question?
Okay, go ahead, Pasha.
Since you said that artists, by the nature of their job, were static and staying in one place, but you, on the other hand, was in the airplane most of the time. You were traveling. Now, this is my question. Is there a piece of art that you bought before the pandemic? And since you were always having a journey and you were exposed to all those images, now that you have this chance to spend time alone, Are you looking at the same art piece differently? Does it make you feel different compared to the earlier times?
Yes, that's an interesting question because I do feel that we perceive artworks differently at different times, not only differently at different times, but differently at different locations. I have seen over and over again when you do a traveling exhibition, for instance, and you show one work in Istanbul, and then you show the same work in London, and you show that in Paris, and then in New York, and whatever. In each place, you will perceive it differently because it will be hung in a different way. It will be installed next to different things. It will be different lighting, different volume, different this and that. And in different times, our soul is affected in different ways by what is happening outside in the world. Therefore, we think, even as professionals, I think that I have a very objective eye, but no, not at all. It's highly, highly subjective. And we are so much influenced by all these outside considerations, or if something is well framed or poorly framed, all of these little subliminal details that change our perception. And so, yes, I think the same work will constantly be viewed in a different way according to what situation we find ourselves in.
Massive, massive thanks. That's all from me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Batuhan. So this ends our this question session, and so Batuhan, you can go now.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simon de Pury. It was great to have you here as a first guest of our semester. This is a legendary elective economics elective course, by the way, and this is designed by me. And every year I try to create something different. And this year, pandemic locked us inside, but luckily we have guests like you. Thank you very much, and I hope we will meet you in person and keep our contact for other projects. And thank you.
With pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to me and asking me very interesting questions.
I hope you enjoyed, and this video the whole thing is recorded. I'm gonna also send you the recording. You can share it on your webpage, on wherever you want. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you
you
very
so
much
much.
again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. So students, thank you very much for this wonderful afternoon. Thank you very much for your questions. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sure that was a tiring afternoon with non-stop discussion. So next week we will have a very colorful guest from New York City. Very funny guy will be with us, Kenny Shakhter. You can find lots of videos of Kenny Shakhter and Simon de Pury together. We have many guests who accepted to be with us. I will not announce them right away, but be ready for Kenny. We're gonna go to Mars with him. He's the other end of the art market. He's art critic, he's a creator, writer, artist, all together. So that finishes our lecture here. I will first